out there, but I don't think those are as great as this one.
This one is the best.
This is the OG.
Yeah, it's so awesome. Nobody ever actually spends much time wondering who actually killed Isidore Fink. They just want to know how. They just want to know how they did it.
Yeah.
Whoever it was that killed him. First, I want to give a shout out to our listener Emily, who suggested this story a long time ago, like 3 years ago, I think. So thanks, Emily. And now into our story. First, Isidore Fink. He was a Polish immigrant to America. He was 30 years old when he died. He owned a small laundry in upper New York City, oh God, where was it? I think 132nd Street.
Which neighborhood is that? Because I'm really bad with my New York geography, because it is neighborhood upon neighborhood.
That's Upper Manhattan, so I don't know.
Okay.
Is that Harlem? 132nd? Would that be in Harlem?
It might be Harlem.
I feel like it was different in 1929.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter.
I'm sure it was. Yeah, I mean, yeah, but it's still there, believe it or not. I don't know if it's the same building. It looks like kind of an old building.
Oh, you mean New York? Yeah, New York is totally
still there.
Yeah, the neighborhood.
As of this recording, who knows in 3 weeks?
Yeah,
I know. Oh, back to Isidore though. So he had a small laundry, and it was one of those ground floor things in an apartment building. So he had an apartment that was right there attached to.
So it was
the
like
business.
everything in Portland right now, where it's just like retail on the bottom and then apartments on the top.
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah.
Typical condensed.
Yeah,
high density stuff.
Yeah.
But
urban dwelling.
Yeah.
But so his apartment was on the ground floor attached to it.
Yeah. There's a door connecting the business and the apartment.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and
it was a laundry like people would. It wasn't like a laundromat. It was like a dry cleaning kind of
kind
service.
of like that kind of thing where people would
drop
bring
your
their
stuff
stuff
off.
in, drop the stuff off, and
that was more typical in the in the early 1900s where clothes were hard to wash.
Yeah.
Well, that's typical anywhere that isn't a Western civilization or Western country where we have washers and dryers that we keep in our homes or in some place. I mean, you go to anywhere outside of the first world, and it's some place where everybody takes their stuff and somebody washes it.
Some places I've gone to, actually, people just take their stuff down to the river and wash it down there.
I went to places where they were throwing all my laundry in a machine and hanging it on the line, and I showed up. I'm like, that's my drawers. Can I have those,
in
please?
the early 1900s, you guys probably know, this is my little tiny tangent, but the way that they made clothes is, everything had detachable collars and cuffs.
For the dirty bits?
Yeah.
And so you could hand wash those. They were really easy to hand wash at home.
Yeah.
And then you would have to take your shirt every, 2 weeks, your pants every 2, or whatever, to be actually cleaned. And so,
because the sink in your house was not big enough to hold that garment while wet. Exactly. It could hold the cuff and the collar, but that was it.
Yeah, and your little armpit pads and stuff.
Because
they do have that. I mean, dress pads and stuff like that.
I was wondering what, for me, after 2 weeks of wearing a shirt, what the armpits would look like.
Well, also things just were smellier back then.
Yeah, I know. People were just used to it. I know.
But you also didn't throw your stuff in a dirty hamper. You hung it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was the thing, is if you hang sweaty clothes,
they will air out a bit.
They air out.
Do a little vodka spray on those. They're great.
The what?
Vodka spray. If you mix vodka and water together and spray your clothes, it'll totally deodorize.
That's a waste of good vodka.
No, you just
drink it.
You buy the bad vodka. You buy the vodka.
Potters, yeah.
We're off topic.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I just like clothes. I don't know what to tell you.
I know you do. But so you've learned a lot more than you wanted to know about laundry. But let's go back to our murder here. It was the night of Saturday, March 9th, 1929. Isidore Fink made a few laundry deliveries, and then he went home for the night. I think it was around 9:30 or 10. He locked himself in because he was a cautious type, if not even a little bit paranoid. But on the other hand, he did live in a fairly crime-ridden neighborhood. Robbery was pretty common, so his behavior wasn't crazy tinfoil out there or anything like that. And then his laundry itself, and his apartment, I had no idea how big they were. I assumed they were pretty small.
I think the sense I had was that they were comparable sizes to each other.
Yeah.
But it was like a half and half space. But
But
it seemed like a maybe max 1 bedroom, more probably.
But that's the thing that I've never understood is like square footage.
Nah, I know.
I've never seen anything that said it was 100 square foot and 100 square foot or 505, and I'm making these numbers up.
Well, all I can assume is from what I know about current New York living situations, it can't have been bigger than most New York apartments these days. And
would you say an easy average number is 500 square foot
500-600
per
square foot
business and apartment? So we had 800 square foot.
But this is 100% speculation.
Okay,
it is.
That's the problem. A lot of the story becomes that.
Yeah, and I think he was doing some of the work in his apartment too.
Well, that's
You would need the room probably.
If it was open, which is also a question for me, were they bisected so that the business portion was separated from the living portion, or was it one open space?
I believe
and
they
there
were separated.
was no division.
I believe they were separated like by a door or something like that.
I got the impression of motel rooms that connect with a door.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Oh, okay.
But other than that, it's there's not enough information out there for a story that's been written about as much as this one has. Specifics like that are impossible to come by.
Yeah.
I did some special looking just to see if anybody had ever written a book about this or anything like that. I couldn't find anything, and there were some New York Times articles about it. I tried to find some of those. They're not available on the interwebs, unfortunately. So, there's just no... I'd love to see some drawings and more pictures and stuff like that. But
any kind of measurements of any kind would be really helpful.
Yeah, so I don't know. Yeah,
So can you explain... I mean, now getting away from that bit of tangent, which is my fault, but because I brought it up before we started recording. Yeah. But, what were the kind of precautions that...
Or maybe
you
not
put him at the kind of
were.
semi-paranoid level.
Yeah. I don't know if this was, ultra paranoid even, but he apparently had extra bolts on his doors and his windows were nailed shut.
What?
And I'm not sure what that means.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask, nailed shut, you have a couple nails in to hold the door or to hold the window panes closed, or you've nailed pieces of plywood over.
Well, I think nailed shut is in what I think it probably was. I mean, it's it could have meant that he took a hammer and nails and actually just wanged away until he had nails driven into his windows and they were never open again. Mm-hmm. But more likely, what's really common, and it's even in my house, I've got this with my wooden double hung windows, and you drill a hole through the wood and then you put a long nail in there,
so they can't open,
so that people can't open it from the outside.
So it's a block.
It's just an extra security device.
Similarly with people, with sliding doors where people put the piece of wood.
Yeah, exactly.
So that you can't open. It's like that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It's very.
That's
common.
what I would also assume, but sometimes somebody says nailed shut, and I think they've totally boarded up their windows.
Yeah, and
or they've nailed 600 nails in and bent them all over sideways because they're nut jobs.
And so I think in this case he probably just drilled holes, but he might have driven a nail or two in there too. I mean, that's one way to do it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it settles the issue permanently. So
it kind of does.
Well, except for if you only have single pane windows, it's pretty easy to break in. But whatever.
It's a good point. But then people got to they got to break through the window, and then because they can't reach in and unlatch it and slide the window open, they have to crawl through an open, broken glass window.
And if it's a panel window situation, that's even because here's the thing: is that having a single pane of glass, a big pane of glass, if you can pop a hole in it, you can kind of quietly break bits of that glass away once you've got a hole in it. But if it's got the wooden lattice in it, where a sheet becomes 6 panels, now you've got to break the wood away, and that's a lot more effort, a lot more obvious, and a lot louder. So that's why windows were divided.
I just always assumed that their windows, these guys that we're sitting next to, just single pane.
Yeah.
Huge sheet.
Big sheets, probably. Yeah, probably that'd be the cheapest way. Probably this was cheap housing. Probably. Yeah. As far as stealth goes, I don't know. I don't think burglars these days, at least, they don't really bother to try to be stealthy. They just kick your door down. But
they just assume that. I mean, usually they case a place, right? They just decide if you're not home, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
they're going to break in and they're going to take what they want.
And if you're not by a vizier,
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, but
okay. So he's nailed shut.
He's got the extra bolts in his door. There's no information really about what kind of bolts he had in his door. Were they key operated deadbolts or were they just
sliders?
Sliders. I mean, I don't know. I think they might have been sliders. Although we'll get more into that in a second here. But so he's home for the night, locked in and everything. And about 10:30 p.m., his neighbor, a woman named Mrs. Lachlan Smith, heard sounds of a scuffle, as in fighting, and then a kind of a thud, but no gunshots. She ran out to find a policeman and brings a patrolman back. His name was apparently Albert Kattenbane, or Kattenborn, depending on the version you read. He comes back to the building and he bangs on the door, gets no answer from Mr. Fink. And then started trying the doors. There were at least 2 doors to the apartment. I think there was one in the hall, maybe one in the laundry. I'm not sure.
That was the impression I had as well, yeah.
Or maybe, and so he tried.
So how he got into the laundry, I'm
not sure about that either, but apparently there was at least, well, obviously there's at least one door, but most of the versions say there were 2 doors into the apartment. But the doors were locked from the inside. The windows, as I said, nailed shut. And the windows reportedly were not broken also. But the only thing that was open, there was a transom window above the front door. You know what a transom window is, right?
I was going to say, you need to explain that for folks, because not everybody gets that.
Yeah, older buildings in some houses and stuff, there's like a doorway and then a whole separate frame window above the door that's the same width as the door typically.
9 feet up.
Yeah,
10 feet usually.
Yeah, it's just right over the door.
Depending on the height of the door,
Well, doors are usually
6 to 7 feet high, so
they're usually like 7.
8?
I think about 7 feet. Yeah,
7 to 8 feet. Yeah, so it'd be
72 inches is typically what a door is. Or ballpark is 72 to 84. But anyway,
84, I think.
It doesn't matter.
And so they're the same width typically as the door, but they're not very high. They're kind of like not terribly high, and they usually are hinged like in the middle. So it's a frame. It's a wood frame with glass in it, and hinged in the middle so it can be rotated. And the whole idea is just to provide ventilation while your door is shut.
You know what this is.
Yeah.
Even if you don't think you know what this is, you know what this window is. You've seen it.
Yeah.
Mostly like older hotels and things like that. They don't. I don't think they have them.
It's a window that is hinged along its horizontal center line, and it typically pivots in towards the room that it is opening up into, and out towards the space where if you're outside of the space looking at, so that the hot air on the inside of the room can flow out along the roof or the ceiling, and cooler air can then, because it's for ventilation.
Yeah, it totally is. Yeah, and so he had one of those, and it was, if not open, at least unlatched apparently. Kind of a lapse on Isidore's part, but maybe
he couldn't climb up there.
It's high. Yeah, it's really
kind of high,
high.
and besides which, he probably didn't think burglars were likely to come through it because, frankly, an adult couldn't fit through this window. Speaking of adults, as I said, the windows were nailed shut, doors were locked, but the transom window was open. So Officer Kettenbane, apparently, some people, this is like back in the day, 1929. People didn't have internet or TV, and so when anything looked like it was happening, people would immediately turn out and start rubbernecking. So he finds in the crowd, he finds a small boy and boosts him up and through the transom opening so the kid can drop down the other side and unbolt the door and let him in.
But it had to be a kid, right?
It had to be
so that's important.
Yeah, the kid was
because it's a very small opening.
Yeah, no adult could fit through the opening.
I couldn't.
No,
even. I'm little.
Maybe could if you really tried.
I'd have to lose some weight.
Not quickly.
Yeah.
There'd be some contortion.
Yeah, it would be hard.
So realistically, it couldn't be a normal-sized human. And I'm a small, normal-sized
You're a small human.
Yeah. You are small. But, definitely, it's a kid thing. Or an extremely emaciated adult thing,
I
suppose.
In the 20s, existed.
Yeah. So the kid goes in, unlocks the door. The police come in, and they find Isidore Fink laying on the floor, dead, 3 gunshot wounds, one of which was in his left wrist or hand, depending on the version you read. But this one had powder burns on it, so a close range shot, like maybe even a contact shot.
So
and we've talked about this before, but to get that kind of powder burn, the gun has to be ballpark about half a foot away.
I would
probably.
say less than,
It's got to be super duper close for the powder to actually be hot enough to burn the skin as well.
Yeah, and at a little bit more distance, even a couple of feet, you'll get particles of gunpowder.
But it won't burn.
But it won't be a burn. Yeah. But if you want, so this was might possibly even a contact.
Made like
burn.
like a point blank sort of situation.
It can almost suggest maybe a struggle over a gun.
Yeah, it totally does.
Yeah, it does.
Hand wounds generally do, right? They usually are defensive in nature. So
it's like, oh, please don't shoot me, boom.
Yeah.
And so, but and I guess, depending on the gun, maybe that'll stop it.
It won't.
No.
It's a Martha Wayne scenario.
Yeah, Martha Wayne
from Batman.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
No, I'm there.
Yeah, thank you, Deb. Joe's like, who?
Martha Wayne?
Batman? I've never heard of such a thing.
I remember
a man
Wayne.
that is a bat?
Yeah.
Flies around at night with echolocation?
I saw the best comic to down the well hole that he falls down, but instead of a horde of bats, it's a horde of rats. And
Ratman.
So then 20 years later, it's Ratman sitting on a precipice in a building, just looking miserable in a rat suit.
You've seen the Batman one, right?
Yeah.
Where it's actually a bat who's choosing to be a man.
Yes.
Who's actually
I
a
like
bat.
that. Man bat. I like it. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Sorry, but Martha, wait aside.
Back enough of
So he's got a bullet hole in his hand
and then
with burn marks.
Yeah, with burn marks, and then 2 in his chest.
Okay.
Which apparently, according to the medical examiner, should have killed him instantly. It probably did kill him instantly.
So likely the hand was first.
Yeah, most
and
likely.
then the chest was second.
Yeah, there's not much point in shooting somebody dead and then shooting him in the hand too, right?
Unless you're a sicko.
Yeah.
Or you want it to appear as though there was a struggle or something. But...
Or it's also conceivable, depending on the kind of gun that was used. Maybe he only fired 2 shots, and one was
the hand was over the chest when the shot was fired.
The hand and into the chest.
But so do we know which side of the hand the burns were on?
No, we do not.
Yeah, see, that's frustrating too.
Like freaking details of the story that kill me.
Because that's an important one, right? If the hand was over the chest, it'd be on the outside, just for people who are having a hard time visualizing things. But if it was a defensive, it'd be on the palm, probably, right?
Yeah. And
it'd be good to know.
I know, it would be good to know. And maybe someday, next time I'm back in New York, I'm going to go to the NYPD and demand the records.
Listen, I spent a lot of time in the New York Times archives, very upset because there were so many articles that looked like they might be related.
Not right. Not quite.
Well, no, the problem is I couldn't read the articles because it turns out from the late 1890s to 1921 are free to read. Anything after that requires a membership, which is paid and is at an exorbitant amount of money. And I was very mad because I kept having these threads, and then I couldn't ever get in there to find out the real thing.
I'm confident that somebody we know has a membership, so we should.
I hope so. And if they do, they need to find it and send it to us.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the windows were closed and locked, and the door was locked, and the only thing that was open was that one tiny transom. Little window.
Yeah, the transom window.
So
that the initial conclusion, obviously, that you would draw is he killed himself.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know anybody who shoots themselves in the hand first.
Always an obvious conclusion.
But I mean, if there's no egress,
I know.
Yeah, it could have been that he.
But there's no gun.
Yeah, actually,
that screws the whole thing up. Is there's no gun.
And by the way, speaking of shooting yourself in the hand, I met a guy once who had shot himself accidentally through the hand,
and then shot himself twice in the chest.
No, he didn't do that.
Right.
It was an accident. I'm just saying, Isidore could have screwed up and shot himself in the hand, and then it doesn't matter. I'm going to kill myself anyway. Bang.
But also, maybe this is off topic. Maybe this is going too fast. But I don't know the statistics behind this, but I feel like most people who try to kill themselves with a gun don't shoot themselves in the chest.
Yeah, I know.
Because it's an awkward...
We've actually had this conversation before.
Yeah.
It is a very difficult and awkward angle.
But more than that...
You would people who do it don't usually use their trigger finger. They use their thumb.
Right. Yeah.
Because they have to backwards face the gun.
But even more than that, the gun would be right there. So.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. Yeah, it's a gun should have been there. But it's looking like murder. But then that opens up another can of worms. Looking around the apartment, there was nothing missing except for his Maltese Falcon sculpture.
Is that real?
Yeah. What's that?
No, is that real?
What, the Maltese Falcon?
Yeah.
Of course it's real. They made a movie about it.
No. But not
what, did he really have a Maltese Falcon?
No, he didn't.
He did not.
I'm sorry. I just want to be very clear about that.
I'm just joking.
Yeah, okay.
I know. It would be great, though.
It would be amazing.
I know, but no. Although you never know. Maybe there was something like that in there that got taken. I don't know.
Yeah, it didn't seem like he had a lot of close personal friends or connections that would be able to really vouch for. I mean, the police said it didn't seem like anything was missing, but
how do they know? I mean,
dust marks usually, right?
If you don't know what is in the house originally, you don't know what is missing from
It'd be
the
hard.
house.
It's hard to say, because
unless he'd had a painting on the wall for 10 years, and there's that telltale ring around it.
Yeah, in this case, they concluded robbery wasn't the motive because he had money in his pockets, and also he had a cash drawer for the laundry that had cash in it. So they concluded that robbery was not the motive. Although, on the other hand, who knows? But so they ruled out robbery, and they found no fingerprints on the crime scene except for Isidore Fink's. He typically didn't let people in that he didn't know because he was security conscious.
Right.
The room was not all torn up.
That's a political term. That's a politically correct term for what he was.
Yeah, a little paranoid, but
security
the room was not all torn up from a struggle or anything like that, so there wasn't a huge thing. But his iron had been left on. He was apparently doing some late night ironing and for his business. Hardworking guy.
Yeah.
And so his iron was turned on, sitting on the ironing board.
Here's a question.